One thing we don't do is tell people not to buy a property. No. That's something that we can't do. Lots of people ask, it's a really common question, would you buy this property? And I said, well, I'm sorry.
That's a hard one, isn't it?
That's an absolute breach for me to say anything like that. I have to rely on my report. However, my report says is how I transition into trying to answer that question.
Welcome to another episode of Unreal Estate Podcast. And today we have a very special guest with us, which will be exciting to work through what our special guest does, Anthony Welch. Anthony is the owner of Bell4 Building Services. Anthony is not only a highly experienced pest and building inspector, but also a master builder with over 38 years experience in the industry. His transition into building inspections has been marked by professionalism and a dedication to comprehensive, accurate reporting, leveraging advanced technology and thermal imaging. Anthony ensures thorough inspections, providing easy-to-read reports with a 24-hour turnaround. He's fully licensed and insured, and convenient delivery options for both purchasers and solicitors. And that is one of the things that we love about how you operate with our clients is your very thorough reporting verbally and in writing to them once you've completed the inspection.
Yeah.
Welcome.
Hi.
So let's kick off today with tell us a little bit about you. That was a great intro. Thanks, Linda. But in your words.
Straight off the website.
Yeah, tell us a little bit about how long you've been doing this and a bit about you.
Bell4. Well, Bell4's been around for about 15, 16 years. Stuart Bell was the original owner. He was a really good friend of ours.
Oh, and did not know that. That's where Bell4 came from.
Yeah, and we live on Bellevue Road, and my wife is Belinda, so there's a whole heap of bells going on. So we took over the business about 8 years ago, and Stuart just gave us a great opportunity to buy. He was retiring, and so the transition took place. So that's as simple as where Bell4 came from.
Well, we love working with you. Obviously, buying property for clients, it's so important to us that we have someone experienced like yourself looking at these properties, and we can only do so much.
Yes.
We know what to look for, and we might start off there even because this podcast is also about helping those buyers that are out there, without representation like us, and how can they perhaps look out for themselves. So I guess where do you start? If you're a buyer and you are looking at a property and wondering whether to proceed, what kind of things should they look for?
Oh, goodness. That's a big
can of worms.
That's a big question.
As a preliminary, they're not builders.
Yes.
But are there a few things that you could sort of say, look, have a bit of a look at this as a preliminary to even sort of work out whether or not it's a property that they should consider before you get involved?
I mean, that's such a huge question because you've got all different types of construction, age, all kinds of different, house genres really. So I think like the houses that are typical, let's say 40 to 50-year-old, bearers and joists, they're going to have, elements of asbestos. They're going to have older tile roofs, cypress pine flooring, hardwood, bearers and joists, suspended concrete, wet areas. Pretty tough build. If they repeated that kind of construction today, I don't think we'd have as many problems. But, obviously there's things wear out. So it's age, to answer your question, age. Appropriate. Our reporting is along the lines if it's good for age. It's one of the terms that we use. Like if it's the original kitchen or the original tiles or the original bathroom and everything works and functions, it's good for age.
It's a really good point, isn't it?
I think that's one of the things a lot of people don't understand.
Yes.
Is, oh my gosh, this is a bit worn.
Yes.
That's not normal, but you have a great way of explaining to our clients particularly that what is age appropriate and how it should look for its age if it's not had any kind of improvements or upgrades.
I generally say to people, hey, welcome to buying real estate, welcome to buying a house. and it's now time to, look after your own maintenance program. But I also say, hey, this is not a new TV coming out of a box, straight from Harvey Norman. So it's really important to help them navigate the issues. And we do recommend, roof restoration and, regrout, reseal in wet areas and things so moisture doesn't pop up and those kind of things.
I guess they're the big ticket items, aren't they? They're often obviously moisture readings, making sure those bathrooms aren't leaking.
Yes.
We're always conscious of roofs, making sure that there's not water coming in on the ceiling, and they're the types of things that we can look for, but we need the trained eye to really understand what's going on.
Yes.
Yeah.
What are the most common issues that you tend to see with properties?
Again, that's a big question again.
We're going to really throw you in it today.
That's all right. I'm ready, I think.
Because we have some. Every time we get a report, something to do with the hot water system, something to do with drainage, something to do with the eaves.
Yes.
Those sorts of things we see quite commonly.
Yeah. Well, I've talked about the Bearers and Joyce age, 40 to 50. Let's come back a little bit to something that might be 10, 20, 30 years old, which is slab on ground kind of construction. Typically, I will see a lack of sarking and insulation and undulating ceilings. And common is maybe a sag here and there, particularly under a valley, like where two roofs meet as a valley.
Yeah.
And they're notorious for leaking and causing sagging ceilings. So there's some common things. And particularly back in the day, they were experimenting with waterproofing, transitioning from very basic waterproofing to acrylics. And acrylics didn't work 25 years ago. You can pretty much guarantee there's going to be a moisture level reading at the shower recess. So they've obviously improved that today, more with polyurethanes and things like that.
It is such a wide, with the age of property looking at it.
Absolutely.
So if you've got a client, say it's not us, it's a buyer that you're talking to, and you're trying to differentiate between minor and major, what sorts of things would you be saying to the client? Look, I think this is something that's a bit more major, or this is kind of expected. How do you sort of interpret that to them and potentially say, this is going to cost you a bit with this property and maybe you should have a think about it?
One thing we don't do is tell people not to buy a property. No. That's something that we can't do. Lots of people ask, it's a really common question, would you buy this property? And I said, well, I'm sorry.
That's a hard one, isn't it?
That's an absolute breach for me to say anything like that. I have to rely on my report. However, my report says is how I transition into trying to answer that question.
So what would be something that would be cost significant that you might have to, you can't answer that question. You obviously can't say don't buy the property, but you can say I've identified this sort of more major issue and this may cost you, for example.
Well, the categories are minor, moderate, major.
Yes.
So things that are of a minor nature, they're basically back in the report, and I just call them under the category hundreds and hundreds of dollars. Page 5 in our report is our summary, and that'll generally be thousands and thousands, not 10.
Okay.
Sometimes tens, sometimes $20,000 for whatever the issue might be. Could be structural, could be termite, could be a number of reasons, but the normal run-of-the-mill wear and tear, decay, ends of barge boards, that's common, minor, moderate, sometimes major. Quite often you'll find a house that's never been maintained. It's never had a lick of paint from day one. It's difficult to explain to people, well, this house has not been maintained. It's never seen a gurney, a clean or anything like that. So it's helping people understand those kind of things. But then you'll come to a property that's just been meticulously done. I love turning up to properties where the lawns are perfect, and quite often, I shouldn't say this, but I'll open the woman's wardrobe to see all the clothes like this and the shoes like this, and they go, yes,
you can tell when you get there. This is going to be a good one.
Half the battle is trying to get inside the owner's mind set.
Yeah, interesting.
So within the person's mind is, are they a neat freak? Do they look after everything? And generally that's how it goes. It's actually quite an easy report to do. But then there's the total opposite where it's a mess and chaos is everything.
You're in for an interesting time.
Yeah, interesting time.
How do you navigate when there's so much stuff you can't actually inspect properly? How do you navigate that?
Yeah, well, our reports are obviously, got disclaimers and, stored items and things like that. So you do have to lift the mat. You do have to, if there's a lounge or a TV unit or something, if you can, and I need to get a moisture level reading at that bathroom, I'll try and get it.
Right.
Because it's information that we need, because that's a common area that needs to assess.
Actually, that's a really good point, because quite often the feedback that we get just in general on the pest and building reports, there's a huge element of can't access area. Yeah. And, it has been said, not by our clients, but just in general, what's good, what is the inspection if they can't even get there, and so we try to explain that, well, there are certain areas of a home that you physically can't get to, but there's also you're bound by insurances and rules and all that sort of thing. So I guess talk us through what you are allowed to access and what you're not, and what you can move and can't move.
Yeah, okay. Well, there's a code, Department of Fair Trading. You can look it up on their site as to what you can access and what you can't, what you're supposed to inspect and what you're not. Hatches in a roof are 600, need to be at least 600 by 600, or 500 by 500, I think it is. And even then, I've had ones that are only 300 wide by 400, and you can sort of only just get your head in your shoulders and take a photo. But then I'm relying then back on my past knowledge of similar homes, similar roof construction, and things like that. You can't go ladder-wise, height-wise, 3.6 metres maximum, but I'm always trying to find, there's a deck I can get my ladder on, or some stairs or something, and sometimes I'm fully extended with my hand with a camera. And there's drones. You can go to drones, but drones are still a 2D picture. It's not connected to your eyes, which are 4 and 5D, plus connected to a brain of knowledge. You actually have to state that this is a drone picture. It's not what I can see and what I'm writing down.
This is why your experience is so important, because even those parts that you can't get to, you're drawing on signs elsewhere, you're drawing on a whole lot of things. And I guess it's like what we do. There's a whole lot of experience and knowledge coming together. And even if you can't access that, I can look at something else, and you've got indicators around the property.
Yes.
So there's all that knowledge, and that's why, it's so important that you have someone experienced like yourself look at a property.
It gives you skills to anticipate things, doesn't it?
Yes.
You can sort of start diagnosing, because you can think you've got a whole library bank to draw on where you think, okay, I've seen this before, or it could be this, or it could be that. It helps with the diagnosis, essentially. You at least can go back to the clients and say, well, look, it's not 100% crystal clear, but based on these identifiers, it could be that or that.
Yeah, they're all common things. They're common things for age-appropriate homes. So, I'll pull up in front of a home, X age, and I already know, I'm already filling the report out, not even looking at the house, because I already know what I'm going to find.
Yep.
And then I will obviously look at those areas and go, yep, confirmed.
Yep.
No, okay, this is better than what I thought.
Have you got a story? I know the listeners love hearing real stories. Have you got a story of where perhaps someone didn't proceed and why they didn't, or something that you could share?
Got lots of stories.
Great, give us a good one.
Well, there was one a number of years ago now, a young girl with a couple of kids and just divorced and looking for a house, and the father got involved. And what I find when the father gets involved is you've got, I know better than anybody else. And so I didn't know this at the time, and I did this first inspection. I'm alluding to multiple inspections here. The first house that she looked at had issues because it was, she only had a certain budget. So it had drainage issues and it had a few things. And I was explaining to her, look, it's not that bad. Obviously there's some drainage and bits and pieces. The father got the report and he rang me and said, how much are all these things going to cost? And I said, look, we don't really get into pricing stuff, but the conversation sort of ended somewhere in there. And it wasn't long she pulled out of that sale. I get a phone call again. Oh, we found another property. And the same thing happened 3 times.
Right.
And every property that we looked at, the father was looking at them more than I was. And they were getting worse and worse and worse as we went along. She really should have bought the first property. And I said to her, as she was heading into her 4th property that she was going to look at, and all this money spent, I said, you need to stop. You need to tell your father to go and have a seat somewhere and make your own decision based on what our professional, assessment of the house is. And I said to her, the first house was the best house that you looked at out of all of these reports so far. And she goes, and so by then it was too late.
Yeah, we find too, buyers take advice from lots of people, and that's where confusion sets in.
Yeah.
And we're very aware of that when we're working with our clients, because sometimes those people mean well, but they're not qualified to be giving that advice.
Yeah.
And it can lead buyers down a very complicated path.
Well, you think about it, they look at one very small handful of properties in the course of their whole lifetime, where we're looking at hundreds every week, and transacting on the daily. So, and as Michelle rightly said, they do mean well, but they're not really experienced. They can talk from their own personal experience. But they can't talk from the experience of a very broad market and a very broad range of properties and situations.
Well, we did one for you guys in Wombrel there where the roof was like this on the side, remember? And we had a really picky client who was, obviously... You stand at the road and look at it and go, well, there's something wrong with the roof. But then the more we looked at it, it really was just a visual issue.
Right.
And if you really wanted to fix it, you could take the tiles off and straighten the battens, put the tiles back on, and you got a straight roof. But there wasn't really anything structural issue with the house. It was a cosmetic or a visual problem.
That's right.
And it was helping him understand that. And some people are really anal. They want everything perfect, and so, well, you have to put some money towards it to make it that way.
It's about bringing awareness, and we always prep our clients coming into receiving reports because they can be overwhelming and a bit complicated, but we kind of know we're not looking for age-appropriate issues, but if there are maintenance problems where the property hasn't been maintained, we'll chat about what sort of you're going to have funds to do that maintenance. If you were stretched to the limit of your budget and had no money to put towards it, we'd probably, have a better look at that and think, well, is this the right property for this person? So it's there's a lot to it, and which is why we find with our clients we can chat them through it. It must be quite a different story for people out there that haven't done it before and they're on their own, because they're really relying on you heavily.
They are.
Yeah. Whereas we can chat them through it. How are you finding the weather at the moment? The rain. We have had so much rain, and of course we had that period of time was it 12 months, a couple of years ago, where we had so much rain. And I can imagine every property you went to almost had an issue. How do you navigate that?
It's what we call extended wet or extended dry. We've had those periods too. So extended dry, we see lots of brickwork cracking, opening up because the ground dries out and bricks open up. So it sort of highlights those kind of things. The extended wet is the moisture meter is just going off the chart where it normally wouldn't. So we sort of say in our report, hey, this is an extended wet period and it shouldn't really be going off where it is. So it's helping people understand that too. Like particularly we've had some really severe storms and wind that is blowing in different directions where it would normally. So where like on a roof, the flashings appear to be good because this is a visual inspection. It's not an insurance policy, and it's not a certification. It's not, those kind of things to say, yep, this is good and it'll work all the time.
And it's true, you can't do an invasive inspection either. That's not in your scope.
No, it's not. So it's visual only. And just recently, we've had a few calls come back and say, well, the roof's leaking, and I can pretty much guarantee you what's going on here, and I'll point them back to the flashings where rain, it can be driven up a roof and up and in. And so what appears to be good on the day may not be in some of those adverse conditions.
Well, it's hard to tell if there hasn't been rain for quite some time.
How can you?
How can you possibly tell?
Yeah.
Unless it's really old, water damage showing. But if it's a fairly new thing and it hasn't rained, well, how can you tell?
Yeah, like normally it keeps the rain out, could go for 5 years like that. And then you just get one storm that wind blows the opposite direction and you go, whoa, where'd that come from?
That's actually kind of leads to a bit of a good point. Do you find that often that when you inspect something on the day and Murphy's Law, the new owner moves in, and like the hot water system, for example, it's perfect in perfect order,
Yes.
and then a week after they move in, it blows. Yeah. Is that something common for people to be aware of? Because quite often, I imagine you would get the call, you inspected this, and now it worked. Yeah, you said it worked.
Well, that's the same as taking your car in to get your pink slip done. All the lights work today, but tomorrow they don't. It's the same thing. It's a visual inspection of what we see on the day, given it being raining or it's dry.
Yeah.
Whether it's got furniture in it or it doesn't. It's that day at that time at that period of condition is what we're reporting on. So if you want me to come back in a month's time when it's raining, obviously I need to pay for it, but it'll be a different report. People have got to understand, it was sunny, it was wet, long conditions of certain things,
I have a question that sometimes is asked of us, and to be honest, we don't look. I can't remember a house that we've ever looked at that's had termites.
One.
How
very early on?
How common are they? How often do you see them? And I don't mean old damage. I mean, how often do you go to a house and go, oh gosh, there's live termites in this house? Does that happen very often?
Not a huge amount.
Must be fairly confronting for the owner if they don't know, and you arrive to do an inspection and there's live termites. It would be I would be horrified.
Well, I'm not really an expert in the area, but I've become knowledgeable, let's say, because we really do leave these kind of things up to the experts. There's this, it's an interesting thing between what reporting about termite versus treating termite. The treating guys, they've got boroscope, they've got invasive, they've got treatment, all that kind of stuff, where we do have thermal camera, we've got moisture meter, we've got tapping of timbers, all of that kind of stuff. So doing similar, but they take over and go further.
Is there circumstances where you might say, look, I think you need to go a step further and have a more detailed look at termite?
Yes. Yeah. Particularly if what we call is the house conducive towards termite, like garden beds up over weep holes, the deck. I did a house the other day where they cladded over brick veneer. So they battened the brick veneer. So you've got plaster, frame, cavity, brickwork.
That's actually not uncommon. People seem to be doing that more and more, aren't they? Because they like the look of the weatherboard.
Correct.
Is that not a good thing to be doing?
No.
Right.
It's terrible.
That's a really good discussion.
This was a thing that I talking to the purchaser about. And then they've added a batten, and then they've cladded it all the way to the ground. So all of a sudden you've got secret access for termite to come up and in.
That's a very interesting point for people to know about, because we are seeing
that style going on around the central coast.
Everyone wants the weatherboard
a lot
look.
Yeah, and the cladding. all the different types of stone cladding as well. Yeah,
it's difficult at times. I'm sure there's going to be a question coming to me about what was it now? About renovation is.
The DIYs we're seeing around. Yeah, that one's
Ask me a question about that in a minute, but that sort of leads into this kind of thing. But the problem with the cladding going over brickwork, you've stopped the bricks from breathing, you've stopped the cavity from breathing, you've stopped the ventilation to the house. The moisture meter went off the chart, all right up to the top of the ceiling. It was really bad.
So it's an entrapment. It just gets trapped.
Entrapment. Everything's trapped. Then obviously all the weather conditions recently, but then it's interesting. The mind of the owner of the home thought they could do that, but then they also put decks around the back of the house above the height of the internal floors. So that was weird too, and that doesn't work. It doesn't work.
So you're looking at that perfect storm where a termite activity could start.
Well, it had a termite issue. Yeah, it had it right in the centre of the house. Was past termite damage. All the ceiling joists were eaten, and then they just added timbers too, which is fine.
You wonder about some of the advice they're getting from the builders that do this stuff, or are they doing it?
It wasn't disclosed either to the real estate agent. They kept it quiet, hoping that I wouldn't find it. I always say, look, if the termite trailings are still on the brickwork in the garage, get a wire brush and brush it off, because I don't want to see it, and I don't particularly want to report it, because once I start reporting termite, there's a whole heap of other things I've got to fill out. That the properties, it's a stigma.
I remember years and years ago, and I honestly don't remember who did it wasn't you, I do know that, but I don't know who did the inspection, but we sold a house. I was a sales agent at that time, and we sold a house in Terrigal, and the lady moved in, and she was an older sort of lady on her own, and I remember the phone call. She called me up and said there was a garage up the top, and then it sort of stepped down. It was a steep block, so the garage at the top, and then it went down to the house. The garage was separate from the house. And she called me up and she said she was in tears, and I said, what's wrong? She's a lovely lady. She said the postman, someone came to read the electrical meter and they could hear the termites in the garage walls. Now, she and she engaged her own pest and building inspector to have this report, and it came back with a big tick. And there was that much activity, the electrical meter guy could hear it in the walls, and he went down, knocked on the door, and he said, I just wanted to let you know I can actually hear the termites.
Yeah, you can actually
I was horrified. This poor
doesn't it breathe? Like if on certain walls you can actually see, like it looks like the wall's breathing. No, that happened to friend's house. No, that actually happened.
That's a lot of termites.
No, it was in our friends. It was in their children's bedroom.
Yep.
And they just kind of started noticing
that's a lot
discoloration.
Yeah.
Wow, that's a bit weird. And then they it literally it wasn't like a big breath, but they could just. And they thought, is a window open or something? Yes. And their house was riddled. Yeah. Riddled with.
Well, when it's full-blown termite like that, termites will create heat. And so they're about 38 degrees, same as us. So the thermal camera will pick that up. As if you're using a thermal camera, it's good. I don't fully rely on it because thermal camera won't pick up inactive activity where it's come and gone. And it won't really pick up very first beginnings of it either, because there's not enough heat. So because thermal heat and on the opposite end of that is if you go up to the ceiling, you can see leaks, so cold. So I've got my camera set up for bright blue for water leak and bright pink white for heat termite.
It's a bit of a jigsaw puzzle, really. It is. You go into a house, piecing all the. You actually said it really well when we started chatting. You're piecing it together and you're creating a picture almost before you even go in there. Correct. So, that's really interesting way to look at it, isn't it?
You've got to expect that the house is full of termites.
Okay.
You've just got to expect it. You've just got to prove that they're not. They're not there. And that's what you've got to do.
So can I skip back to these people that are putting weatherboard over brick? What should they be doing instead? Perhaps rendering? If they're going to renovate, because brick is dated.
Yeah.
Is that coming from a personal.
Kind of.
A budding renovator sitting right next to you.
No, not quite that. No, I did. Okay, I did buy a house to renovate, and it is brick, and I don't want it to be brick.
Yep.
And I haven't really gone down the track of what it's going to be.
Yep.
But there's a lot of people out there that buy brick houses and would like them to be more modern.
Yep.
What do they render? Obviously, is the other option.
Yeah, absolutely. Render or straight over the brickwork. You can do veneer stone as well in panels. So architects like to have a feature panel at the entry, say, of veneer stone.
Yes, that's quite common.
Common kind of thing. Yeah, so the minute you render the brickwork, it seals it. So you're not supposed to render over weep holes and things, but you can. Off the record, you can, because the cavity then, the brickwork is then sealed. So the idea of brick veneer is that any moisture in the brickwork goes to the cavity, goes down, hits the flashing and comes back out the weep holes. That's the idea of it. But if there's no moisture in the brick, well, then there's no need for a weep hole.
Well, I've definitely learned something today, because we will now have our eagle eye out for those houses that have got weatherboard over brick. Because if you buy a brick house, maybe stop trying to turn it into a weatherboard house.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, while we're kind of on that note, let's delve into DIYs.
Okay.
Because COVID was an interesting period.
Yes, it was.
Lots of people were bored at home and thought, Bunnings is open. Bunnings is open, and I'm going to Google how to do. I've always wanted that fireplace, or I've always wanted to renovate the bathroom.
Yeah.
Let's give it a crack.
Yep.
Tell us about those situations, because we see a lot of
the DIYs.
Yeah.
Or the Google DIY.
Well, look, I'll just go back just a fraction too.
Yeah.
As a segue into answering your question, when you come to they're the hardest homes to report on and inspect, because you've got to peel back everything that's been done, go back to the original house, then work out, okay, what's been extended, what's been done, what's been renovated, kitchen, bathroom, all of those things. So you've got to go back to the very beginning and then work out what's been attached and done. And quite often I'll just ask the lady of the house. Also, I just love asking questions when I get there. Sometimes I'll meet a client that just wants to talk your head off, but I try not to do that, even though I'm a bit of a talker. But the more questions you can ask, the better. Particularly, like, say, with renters, the first question I'll ask them, roof leak, and I'll tell you, they'll take you straight to it. And they'll point everything out because they want it fixed.
Yeah, that's right.
And so they're the best person to ask about a house. So I ask those kind of questions. But yeah, so what's been renovated? We did the ensuite. The bathroom's still the same. We put a deck on the back and those kind of things. Great. Mental note in the report when I come to that. Okay, has it been constructed correctly? The connections to back into the original. I did, should I say the suburb?
Yeah.
Wombrel, in an area.
Big suburb.
That's
no one will guess.
That's, they're $2 million homes.
Yeah.
Everything's gone through the roof. I was in the roof space, and the way they'd added on the additional roof and structure was missing a whole heap of things.
And this was a builder did this.
I don't know who did it.
But it was not done by them themselves. They probably engaged someone.
Probably.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We see this a lot.
Components missing in the roof structure of connections to beams. Was the beam the right size? It doesn't appear to be, because it's taking trusses and then it's taking another roof load on again. The proper shoe brackets on and whatnot, and it just didn't appear to be. So I took photos, and that sale didn't go through because, again, going back to the mindset of the person or the owner of the home, they were okay with that, but there was piers under the house that were like this, and just a tiny little packer here and there. Oh, we've had all that done. No, you haven't had it done.
Maybe they thought they did.
They did on a Sunday, had a few beers and had a working beer.
They were told they had it done.
But when you go there and you look at it, you go, this ain't done, because drainage wasn't able to get out. So when there's poor drainage under a home, there's a knock-on effect of obviously moisture in the home, but also piers subside.
Yeah.
Piers wobble. And when you see a tide mark on the brickwork, you go, uh-oh. When you see what are those little moisture containers in the wardrobe?
Yeah, we love those.
That's a dead set giveaway too.
Yeah.
There's lots of...
humidifiers everywhere.
Exactly. That was interesting. As soon as I said, look, I'm usually pretty good with my explanation to people of what I find. I said, look,
and this was to the buyer, or
this is to the buyer,
right?
Yeah, I can't talk to the owner, but the owner was like in tears later because the sale fell over.
They may not have known how poorly the work had been done.
Maybe. Yes, I got through 2 things with this lady, and she said, "That's it. I'm not buying." So, wait. You need to get the report, read it, and see what can be fixed. So you can potentially negotiate the price, because that's, our ethos as Bell4 is to help people buy homes no matter how bad they are. So we don't do pass or fail. We don't say no, don't buy it.
Awareness. You want them to be aware.
Yeah, so
absolutely, it's about transparency and awareness, and ultimately it's their decision, because everyone has a different risk appetite.
Yeah,
and some people, challenges won't bother them because they can fix them. And you actually brought up a really good point, because another question we get asked a lot: oh my God, if the pest and building fails, and it's like, well, it's not a pass or fail.
Correct.
But what will happen is you'll be armed with information to decide. But generally, one of 2 things happens. Either the vendor says, you know what, I'm going to get all this fixed by licensed professional tradespeople before settlement, or they will say they'll negotiate the price and say, well, you do it with your own tradespeople, but we'll negotiate the price. So there's always generally a solution where everyone's happy. It's not often that a whole, sale falls over because of something, would you say?
Yeah, absolutely.
I've got a question around that. This might be hard to answer, so approximate is fine. What percentage do you think of the inspections that you do don't proceed? The buyers don't proceed? Would it be...
It's hard for me to know, because I'm not in...
Would it be half? It wouldn't be half or anything like that.
Oh,
it'd be
no.
10% maybe?
I'd like to think all of them go through, because I've done my job.
Yeah.
I've helped them navigate the issues and sort out what they can get, with the sale.
Because we don't have any... I don't think we've had any that haven't proceeded.
No.
We've always, if there was, minor issues, we work through them. We haven't had anything where we've sort of been blindsided by...
But you guys are making my job easy, because you guys are already picked the house.
Well, we aim to please.
You're already seeing the issues.
Yeah.
So you're not going to give your client a house that's a lemon to begin with. I'm just coming along to confirm your good choice.
Well, before we wrap up, that's probably not a bad question that we can sort of finish up on as well. How many buyers agents sort of are you dealing with, and where do you see the benefit of buyers agents for the clients? You sort of opened with what you just...
Well, they're not all the same.
Like pest and building inspectors.
That's true. And the reports themselves we haven't talked about the reports and how easy are they to read. Are they just full of pictures on 2 pages, and you've got to try and work out where the pictures go in the house? I think I'll get one of those kind of reports on the email. Can you check this out? I go, well, I can't even read it. How can you navigate it if I can't? Our reports are in segments. You can very easily go to the rear deck and all of the issues and
yours
pictures
are great, very easy to navigate
in the report on page whatever it is. So the external roof, on, in, under is what we always try to get to. And you'll be able to just go to internal ceiling linings. What are they? Are they good? Are they fair? Are they poor? So you can look at that and the issues within the report. Back to your original question, which was...
Just with buyers agents, the benefit, obviously you've sort of broached it and said, well, you guys do make it a bit easier. You're already doing a lot of the preliminary work. How do you find working with buyers agents?
Well, you guys are easy to work with because of what I've said, but there's some out there that It's interesting. I've heard a couple that are leaving real estate and going to buyers agents, but they never last. They're probably around for 6 months or a year maybe. They just don't last because there's no backbone to what they're doing. They're just on their own thinking, I can make it or make the money and all of that kind of stuff. So, but it's not about just selling the home and putting the money in the bank. We used to have a saying on the construction site, slap it up and grab the cash. It's not like that. There's integrity. There's a whole heap of things that you need to consider.
We do try, and also, I guess we've been doing it for such a long time and been in the industry for such a long time. We've learnt over the years from dealing with many different pest and building inspectors, obvious things that we can look for.
Yes.
And we do very much try to do that with every property. And then, of course, if there's something that we look for red flags, so then we can then say to you when we're booking the pest and building inspection, hey, we noticed this.
Yeah.
Don't know if it's anything to worry about.
Yeah,
but can we look at it more closely?
We had that the other day in Boca Beach. I just really wanted that drainage under the house looked at, and the roof I wasn't quite sure. And so, we could say that to you. And, we have those conversations with the clients. I said to the client, look, this is what I'm seeing, but I'm going to chat to Anthony, let him know these are the areas we're concerned, just so to highlight them, and we communicate with each other.
Yeah. And then there's something written in the report and there's pictures of it, even if it's good. If you've got a question like that, I'll then make a special point where maybe not have normally put it in the report because it's not really an issue.
Yeah.
But because you guys are highlighting something, I'll do that. And if people want a particular thing within reason, I've had some where somebody's virtually done the report for me. They've given me 2.5 pages full of the retaining wall's falling down at the front. It looks poor to me, and they'll go through the whole house like this, the flashing, the this, the that, and I go, well, you've done the report. You don't need me to confirm what you've already seen. So,
do you have people want to come along to the inspection?
Yes, it's a real pain. What Belinda does in the office, who's my other half, who is vital.
The engine room.
She's amazing.
Bell4. She is a great communicator on the phone. She sorts out most issues on the phone.
She's so calm. She's got the most amazing demeanour.
Yeah.
It's like nothing ruffles her feather. She's very calm but assertive.
Yeah.
You know where you stand.
Yeah, she's a straight shooter.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Awesome.
You think she's not, but she is. Yeah, it's a good thing. Keeps me on my toes. So, she basically directs me everywhere.
So, for those listeners, this has been amazing today. Like, I've learned something, and I'm sure everyone who listens and is looking at buying a property will find it incredibly interesting, the things that you've shared. Is there anything else that you'd really feel that you'd like to share with anyone out there looking at buying property, or if not, where do they find you?
Come and see Bell4. We're getting a lot of, obviously we get lots of referral because we've been around for 15 years, so people know who Bell4 is. Obviously there's the website, all the W's, Bell4. So BELL and the number 4, bell4.com.au. And there's a part of the website there you can make an inquiry.
Fabulous.
And lots of different inquiries and lots of good times ahead, I think.
Well, we love working with you and are happy to refer you on. We know you do a great job, and thanks so much for coming in today. It's been great to have you.
Yeah, thank you, Linda. Thank you, Michelle. It's been a great time.
We hope you enjoyed this episode of Unreal Estate. If there is someone that you think would benefit from the information that we've shared today, please feel free to share this episode or leave us a comment. We'd really love to hear your feedback. We release a new episode every 2 weeks, so to stay up to date, hit follow or subscribe, and we'll see you in the next one.